So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to show you our IPA 3100, specifically how to test an Alaris infusion pump. So you can see in the background here, I'm going to change my screen. You guys don't really need to see me. We'll make a bigger version of the equipment here. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what we're going to do here with the IPA 3100. Now this is the main screen that it powers up on, so it's very easy to perform the flow and occlusion testing and also drain the unit. Now we would drain it before we ship it or send it in for service. We want to make sure there's no residual fluid inside so it doesn't freeze or anything when we ship it. So we get a very easy interface from the main screen. We can view our test records from the top left here. We have a battery status indicator at the top showing us our battery level or whether it's charging if it's plugged in. We're currently running from battery. And then we have the settings over here. So the settings allow us to see when is the unit due for calibration, serial number, software, that sort of thing. And then we can change the pressure units if we don't want PSI. Maybe we have a device that wants millimeters of mercury or some other unit of measure. And then we also have a setting for density. Now, this is going to come in handy when we're testing the Alaris pump because I'm sure you're familiar with that procedure. They want grams. They want you to use a scale. But a scale can be a little clumsy when doing infusion testing, and also we can not only do the grams measurement with the IPA, we can also do the pressure measurement for the occlusion. But this density setting allows us to convert our measured milliliters into grams for PM procedures like the Alaris. And then we have other settings here in the main screen. That's the main one that I wanted to show you here that we'll be using. And also the Bluetooth. This unit does have built-in Bluetooth. And so we'll demonstrate the use of the product by itself and then also remotely using an iPhone and showing how to create test records and that sort of thing. We do have links right on the main screen, whether you have an Apple or an Android device, for downloading MyBC Mobile. So with that said, those are all the main system features here. We can see our test results, previous test results, flow, occlusion, when it was run, that sort of thing. But let's say we're going to test this Alaris pump here. Now I'm starting with my administration set. Let's see if I've zoomed out far enough so that you guys can get a better view of everything here. So this is my administration set and it's completely empty. So what I'm going to do is actually cheat here, and I'm going to use the drain function of the IPA 3100, make sure that my tubing is in the tank there. Now normally I would have that water back here, I would have that up on an IV pole, or they specify it has to be 20 inches above the pump for running testing. For this demonstration I've just got a little 1 gallon jug just so that it fits on the table here. Now we can see the water starting to come through the tubing. Oh, maybe the view can't see it there, but it's going to see if I can get this in the camera. So it's starting to pull that water through the tubing. It's almost at the administration set. Now what we want to do is obviously make sure that we get all the bubbles out. If you've tested an Alaris pump before, you know that it's quite sensitive to bubbles. Now the IPA 3100 is not. It really will ignore any bubbles, but for what we're going to do, we want to make sure that we don't get any bubble alarms. So those air pockets like to get trapped at anywhere there's a corner or a fitting. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is done. Now I still have the end of the water is right here. It hasn't made it to the IPA 3100 yet. And that's just to show you guys that the IPA really doesn't care about bubbles. We're just going to go ahead and leave that in there. I'm going to go ahead and load this administration set so that it's ready for testing. Get this guy in here. Now, the first thing I want to show you is just running manual tests with the unit. So we would either do a flow test or an occlusion test. So let's start with the flow test. Now I need to configure the IPA 3100. It has a setting for the flow rate and the volume delivered, just like on the pump. So we want those settings to match because we're going to calculate percentage of error right on the 3100 screen. So if we want those readings to be accurate, we need to have the right settings. Now, again, these come from the service manual for the Alaris. They want to do a flow test at 500 milliliters per hour and 12 milliliters. Now, we've got other settings on the screen here. I'll just give you a little description. The duration, we can set for a specific time if we want to run for 10 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. And we can tell it to end the test when we've met that duration. Or we can set it to end when we've dispensed a specific volume, or both. It has to meet volume and time. So those are different ways we can test our pump and run our test. And then we have start conditions as well. It can either be a manual start or an auto start. Now, I like the auto start because it's going to sit here and wait. It's going to ask me to prime the system because I just drained it. Now, when I start the test, it's sitting here, it's ready. It's idle, it's ready to go. So I'm going to start this here, and now it's waiting for flow. So I don't have to start the pump. You know, sometimes you have to press start on the tester and start on the pump at the same time. In this case, we have the freedom to configure the pump and get all of that going without having to worry about timing. So I turned on the pump here, and it's going to do its normal setup stuff. And let me zoom in a little bit here so you can get a better view of the screen. We don't need to see the background so much. Okay, so we're not a new patient, and we're going to go ahead and use the same function. We'll select our channel, and we just want to do a basic infusion. So we want to set the rate, again, 500 milliliters per hour for a 12 milliliter dispense. The IPA is ready to go. Actually, when I was moving the tubing around, it detects the start of the test by pressure. So when I move things around, when it started up, it detected that pressure and started the test. So I just reset it here. And now when I start the pump, it's going to go ahead and gather measurements for me. So we can see on the screen here, we've got, it's showing the measured volume. It's also converting that to grams based on our density that we set. And the density is based on temperature. So there's online, typically, you know, everybody uses 1 for density. But you can get as accurate, I think we have 5 digits in there. So if you want to get the official density for your water based on your temperature, you can enter that in. But we'll give you density, we'll give you the grams right here based on the density that you have set. We can see the settings for the test down at the bottom. So it tells me what I had configured. And we'll see the percent error shown as it runs. Now you'll notice that the volume percent error is pretty high. Again, we had it set for 12 milliliters, so it hasn't gotten anywhere near 12 milliliters yet. So that percentage of error should drop as it gets closer to the target. Now, one thing I'll say as the test is running here, the infusion pump, when it gets done, it's going to go to a KVO mode, keep vein open. So it's going to go to real low flow rate. So for this test, I want to make sure that I stop the pump, or stop the test when the pump stops and goes to that KVO mode. Okay, so there's my test results there. I'm going to go ahead and pause the pump. I've got my readings for volume. We dispensed 11.7, and that grams is 11.713. So here we've got our test results. We can record those as needed and compare those against the settings in the service manual and determine whether it's good or bad. Okay, so the other test we can do is occlusion. We can, similar thing with starting the occlusion test. If we start manually, then it'll start the timer as soon as we start the test. If we do auto, then it's going to wait to start the test until it sees pressure. So it's idle, it's waiting for pressure, awaiting pressure at the top. So all I have to do is set the pump. And for our occlusion testing, it's 125 milliliters per hour, and they say dispense 4 milliliters. So we'll go ahead and do that. And now that the pressure started to rise and the time automatically started. So it's keeping track of the peak pressure, and it's going to tell me, checking the line. So the pump detected that there was pressure, occlusion downstream. It's going to wait a few seconds, and then it's going to throw an alarm. Okay, so it detected the alarm. We can go ahead and stop the test, and it will tell us that our occlusion pressure was 5.7 psi, and it occurred at 10 seconds. And again, we can go back and compare that with the service manual and determine whether that's good or bad. Okay, so that's a demonstration of the manual test modes, right? But what we'd like to do is that requires a lot of thinking and setting things up. What I'd like to do is I want this all done for me. I want to have a test sequence. I don't want to have to put in values and configure my test instrument. So what I would like to do is show you another way of doing this testing. And this is going through Bluetooth. So I have an iPhone here, right over here. This is running MyBC Mobile. And MyBC Mobile just communicates with Bluetooth to our test equipment, and it can get readings and allow us to run pre-configured test sequences just like the service manual for the device we're testing. So everything is based on the asset. So what I'm going to do is click right in here on the barcode, and that's going to open up my camera, and that's going to allow me to scan an asset tag. So I just happen to put one on that Alaris pump, and now we have that asset selected. It's all the information that I have pre-configured for that device in my database. It's ready to go. So it tells me, let's run our sequence. So we select that. Now this is going to show me a preview of the sequence that I'm running just to make sure that I have, does this look like the right test that I want? And then we can hit start at the bottom. And just like the test sequence in the service manual, we have a lot of inspections to do, right? We have to check the case. We have to check all the keys and make sure there aren't any foreign objects. So this is the same checklist that we would see in the service manual. And we'll go through that step. And the next step, inspect the door latch, make sure the silence button works. That's the most important one for me. So we'll go through, do all these, physical manual inspections, and we'll go through, load an empty set into the pump. Well, we just filled this one, so we'll just pretend like we had an empty set, and we did that. All of our manual inspections. Now we're getting to that automated testing. So this is a neat thing that we have in MyBC Mobile in our test sequences. You can load a picture of what should my configuration look like. What should this test be? So this shows me all the connections. This is a picture straight from the service manual, but it's already configured the IPA. It started the test for the occlusion test, and I can follow my instructions that are up here. Again, we entered these straight from the service manual, so we'll go ahead and configure the pump. Now, unfortunately, we can't communicate with the pump to send the settings, but we can tell you exactly what to do. So it's telling me to do 4 milliliters at 125 milliliters per hour. So I'll go ahead and start that, and we'll see the inclusion test is running here. Now we can also see those readings shown on MyBC Mobile. So it's communicating with the IPA 3100, it's getting those values and showing that on the screen. And we can hide the configuration just to show our test results. Now, once I stop the test, it's going to then get that peak pressure. So now it detected the alarm, patient side occlusion, my favorite silence button, and I'll hit stop here. What that's going to do is end the test and read that value into MyBC Mobile. So that was our peak pressure. Now that failed, and it's telling me right here, you've got a failure in your test. Now, The service manual says that we should have a pressure between, it's around 7 psi. So our pressure is a little low here, so it's telling us that, yeah, we've got a failure in our test. So those test limits were built into the auto sequence, it programmed in when we created the test sequence. And so it knows whether this data is good or bad. So we can proceed on to the next test. And so this is why we're doing this testing, right? Sometimes we find a piece of equipment that just doesn't work right. So we're going to go ahead and proceed. And I'll show you what happens with this test result, and we'll get all these reports at the end, and we can see the effect of this failure in the test. So then we're going to do a fluid side occlusion, and we can look at the test picture. It says occlude between the fluid source and the pump. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to restart the pump so that it's flowing. And then I have a little clamp. Let's see if I can get this in the camera. Yep, I've got a little clamp here on the inlet side. I'll go ahead and occlude that. And it detected that right away. So that's a pass for that. I'll go ahead and clear that. Okay, so we passed that step. And next we're going to do a flow test. So we've got our readings again here on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and it started for me. So it sent all the settings to the IPA and it started the test. So all I have to do is configure the pump, select the channel. Now these flow tests are done at 500 milliliters per hour, just like we did before, and 12 milliliters. And we'll go ahead and start that test. And again, as soon as the flow started, it detected the change in pressure. That change in pressure triggered the test to start measuring, and now we've got measurements on the screen. Again, this will take about a minute and 15 seconds. But we can also see that those readings are also in MyBC Mobile. So that makes it convenient for knowing where the test is and our current data. Now we also have a setting here for Module 1. MyBC Mobile is also set up for using with the IPA 3400, which is a 4-channel infusion pump analyzer, but the 3100 is a single channel, so we only have access to Module 1. We also have a setup picture available for this test, which we can view. It shows us the configuration if we need to see that. And that is entered at the time that we create the auto sequence. And again, it's going to go into KVO mode when it's done. I was going to press the stop button on the screen, but I'll show you we can press the stop button in MyBC Mobile. It stops the test, gathers our data, and here we go. We had 11.64 milliliters, which is a pass. And then we can continue on with the rest of our inspections. Open the door, verify operation of the door ajar, which it'll probably, there we go. So we can say we did all these inspections, and we can tell it to stop yelling at us. Okay, so channel ID display, yes, I can see the channel. Scrolling display, it's definitely scrolling. Rate is on the screen. Lighthouse LEDs, they're definitely blinking. And no missing pixels. Okay, so we'll do the rest of our inspections based on the service manual. And see the pump alarm, we definitely saw the alarm and we heard the alarm. We tested all the keys. Now, the auto sequence is complete. So I can look at all of the test data. There's my rate test, occlusion test. Here's the one that failed. So this shows me that the overall test result was fail, and I can, it'd be one thing to show you that everything passed and everything's all, rainbows and unicorns, but sometimes we have equipment that doesn't pass, and this shows us what the test would look like if we have a failed piece of equipment. So I can submit this to the database. Now this is uploaded to the cloud, and then I can go through and I can see my records that I have. And so here's the Alaris preventive maintenance test that I just ran. I can get a PDF of that test, and then I can print that right from my phone. And yep, that's my printer. And out comes my PDF report here. That's probably hard to see if I can get this to show up on the screen. But yeah, so we can see our test results. It right away it says that we had a failure. It says when the test was run and all that. So it's very easy to get a test report. And the other thing I can do here is turn off the pump so it won't yell at me anymore. We close our printing. We can also save this report to files. So any of the file databases that you have set up. For example, I've got this set to my OneDrive. I've got a folder named My BC Test Results. So I can save that to my OneDrive right there if I want a PDF version of that. And then we can see, we go into our files, and there's the test that we just ran. So there's our test results there. So it's very easy to get records, save records into the database, and print PDF results. Okay, so that's basically all of the testing with either remotely with MyBC Mobile or locally without, just running right on the IPA 3100. So at this point, I'd like to open the floor, see if you have any questions. Is there anything else I can show you, or anything else you'd like to know about the IPA 3100?
I'd love to know about the IPA 3400. How can we test 4 at the same time? How would that process work, and does that save us a lot of time to do 4 at the same time?
Well, and it's really a matter of if you can keep up with, you get all the administration sets loaded, and if you transfer those from pump to pump, then yeah, that can work really well. So it's very similar to this auto sequence that we had on the 3100. You can set up checklists. You can set up all of those tests on the 3400, and 4 channels can be running independently on 4 different pumps. So that's a great question. I'm not sure. I think we have. Well, we might have videos for that. If not, we should create one. But that's a great question.
What about the Plum 360? Is the same setting?
Go ahead, you're live, so we can hear you.
What about the Plum 360, the IP Plum 360?
Right. So the Plum 360, it's a very similar thing. So it wouldn't use these same settings, right? So you may have a different flow rate, a different volume infused, but you could create a very similar test sequence, very similar to this, that would be all of your physical inspections, all of your flow testing, the occlusion testing, and all that can definitely be set up.
Can this unit help us with pressure calibration?
So pressure calibration, essentially if you put this unit into occlusion mode, so we go to occlusion mode, we can, so pressure calibration, I'm assuming you would be using a hand pump or something to apply pressure to your infusion pump or other device?
That's right.
Yes. So let me hold on one second. I got to take my headphones off. I'm going to go and get the hand pump. I've got one right here, actually. So let me zoom out a little bit too, probably this one here. So all I have to do is disconnect the inlet tubing here, and I've got my handy dandy hand pump here, so I can plug this in with the correct fitting would be useful. It's always a matter of having the wrong fitting, right? So plug that guy in there, plug this into my hand pump, and then as I apply pressure, I'll hit start. So as I apply pressure, now I've got a manometer, and I've got the instantaneous pressure. Let's see if I can show that. Ooh, bad reflection there. Show that right there on the screen. Now you've got a manometer that you can use for calibrating pressure. Good question. And this does go up to 50 psi.
We hope it never gets there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if somebody's got 50 psi going into their veins, they're going to be very unhappy.
Can this be used for other things outside of the IV pumps, such as dialysis machines? If I was to measure 125 ml for 15 minutes?
Sure. Yeah, so measuring 125 milliliters per hour for 15 minutes, yeah, you can set it up for multiple hours of dispenses. No problem at all. Yeah, we've tested it with really low flow rates, down at 10 milliliters per hour, 5 milliliters per hour, and we've gone up to really high flow rates. So, yeah, anywhere across the range, it works really well.
All right, we got crickets over here.
No problem.
Hey, Lucio, this one does not do the PCA pump, but I don't know if you want to mention the 3400
Oh,
does.
that's correct. There was a question about the IPA 3400. That is one of the main differences between the two. The 3100 here, being a single channel, it doesn't do, like, you can test a PCA pump, but you won't be able to count the number of boluses. You won't be able to get the bolus interval, things like that. A PCA pump will deliver, whatever, 5 milliliters at 10 or 20 milliliters per hour. We can measure that flow rate here. So you could test the flow rate and the volume dispense of a PCA pump. But as far as doing bolus count and bolus interval, you would need the IPA 3400. That's a feature of that unit where it will provide measurements for every bolus that's delivered.
Questions?
I think you have filled our brains tonight.
Good job.
Okay, well, great. If something comes up, feel free. You've got Mike Clotfelter there. You've got his contact information, and my contact as well. Feel free to ask. We're always here to help. We like to answer questions and make sure that we can help you guys do your job as quickly and efficiently as possible. So feel free to use us as a resource.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucia.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Ken, thank you for also joining to be supportive. Does anybody else have any questions for Lucio before he let him go home to his family? All right, Luch, have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Keep that warm weather down there, would you?
Yeah,
Yeah, holding on to it.
cold and rainy.
You wouldn't mind
Nice
being
meeting
here.
you all.
See ya.
All right, thanks everybody. Bye.